The next topic we're going to look at is consumer and producer surplus. So to illustrate this concept, let's take a look at the market for iPads. Now, let's go ahead and first start by setting up our market, right? Simply the supply and demand for iPads. Now, we focused a lot on this idea of equilibrium price, the agreed upon price that consumers and producers come together at. So let's say in our market for iPads that is $500. That only really tells part of the story though. What we also need to look at is that we have consumers who are willing to pay more for this particular iPad, right? Notice on our demand curve we have all of these people up here that would be willing and able to buy an iPad at more than equilibrium price. But because of this idea of a consumer surplus, they don't have to. Consumer surplus represents the difference between what you would be willing to pay and what you actually have to pay at equilibrium. The difference between the maximum price a consumer is or would be willing to pay and the price they actually have to pay at equilibrium. So, when we look at consumer surplus, we can represent this graphically as everything under the demand curve above equilibrium price. Again, this is showing is the extra value or utility a consumer gets when the goods market price is below what they would be willing to pay for the good. Producer surplus is linked to the supply curve. Just like we had people who would be willing to buy an iPad at a higher price, we have sellers that would be willing to sell at a lower price, right? Forego a little bit of profit, operating in this area of the supply curve. But because of the producer surplus, they don't necessarily have to. All right, so here, looking at producer surplus, in which we have sort of the added benefit to producers who would be willing to accept a lower price, but don't have to. The difference between the price a producer actually gets for the product and the lower price they might be willing to take is what's known as the producer surplus. So everything here under the price, but above the supply curve. Again, what this is showing us is sort of the value or utility the producer gets when the goods market price is above what they would have been willing to accept. So hopefully this idea makes a little bit of sense to you. We'll go over this a little bit in class, take a look at a couple free response questions related to this, but make sure that you go ahead and answer the questions posted to Blackboard for your homework.